My name's Brian Miller. I live in this quiet little suburb, in a house my wife and I spent years putting together. Well, I built most of it, while she obsessed over paint colors and tile patterns. After leaving the army, I stuck to a pretty strict routine just to keep myself sane. Every morning, like clockwork, I'd wake up at 5:30, drink a tall glass of water, down a bitter protein shake, and head out for a run. It helped me feel like I still had some kind of control in my life, you know? Madison, my wife, and we weren't exactly in a bad place. But lately, it felt like she was somewhere else. Always busy with work, charity events, meetings. I told myself not to overthink it. People get busy. Life moves on. That morning started just like any other. I finished my shake, grabbed my gym bag, and jogged to the old tennis court down the street. Something about the steady rhythm of hitting the ball against the cracked asphalt cleared my mind better than any therapist ever could. I was just finishing up, wiping sweat from my forehead, when my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was Alex, the guy who runs the local bar where Madison and I had our first real date. At first, I almost ignored the call. But some gut feeling, made me answer. Brian. Alex's voice sounded weird, like he didn't know how to say what he wanted. Yeah, what's up? I said. There was this awkward pause. I saw your wife last night, he said carefully. She was with some guy. Tall dude, real polished. I think his name's Scott. Scott Peterson or something like that. They left together. Seemed pretty close. My stomach dropped. I kept my voice even somehow. What do you mean by pretty close? Another pause. Then Alex sighed. She was laughing, leaning into him like they were real familiar. They left the bar together around midnight. Midnight. Madison had told me she was stuck at some charity gala and would be home by 11. I swallowed hard, thanked Alex, and hung up. When I got home, everything felt off. Too quiet. Too still. In the kitchen, the faint smell of her perfume still hung in the air. There was her coffee cup sitting on the table, half finished, like she'd just been there minutes ago. I glanced toward the trash can, not sure why, and something caught my eye. Buried under some junk mail and a crumpled napkin was Madison's bracelet. Her bracelet. The one she wore every damn day without fail. The one she once said felt like a part of her. I picked it up carefully, turning it over between my fingers. No scratches, no broken clasp. Just tossed away like it didn't mean anything. In the army, you learn to trust actions more than words. And right then, the bracelet told me more than anything Madison ever could. She was supposed to be home soon. I just had to wait. And when she walked through that door, I was gonna find out exactly what the hell was going on. I didn't have to wait long. Maybe 20 minutes later, I heard the front door creak open. I stayed in the kitchen, just standing there by the table, holding her bracelet in my hand like a damn piece of evidence. Madison stepped into the hallway, kicking off her heels. She looked tired. Her dress still clung to her like she'd been out all night, and there was this faint smell of wine and expensive perfume trailing after her. When she saw me standing there, her whole face shifted. That fake casual smile froze halfway. Morning, she said, careful, like she was feeling out my mood. Morning, I replied, voice flat. She dropped her clutch onto the counter and ran a hand through her hair. Sorry I'm late. The charity gala ran longer than I expected. I didn't say anything. I just grabbed another mug, poured her a cup of black coffee, and slid it across the table to her. You look good, I said. Calm. Too calm. She blinked, hesitated, then sat down and wrapped her hands around the mug. Thanks, she murmured. Her eyes kept darting to the coffee, to the floor, to anywhere but me. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed over my chest. Alex called, I said casually, like we were just making small talk. She went completely still. Alex from the bar, I added. Said he saw you last night. With Scott Peterson. Her mouth opened slightly, like she wanted to argue, but no words came out. The steam from her coffee curled up between us like a wall. I didn't let her get a word in. I kept going. He said you were laughing with him, I said. Touching him. Left with him around midnight. Madison swallowed hard. She set the coffee cup down with a tiny clink. Her hands were trembling now, just enough that I noticed. "Brian, I can explain," she started, voice shaking. I didn't move. I just reached into my pocket and pulled out her bracelet, holding it between two fingers, and placed it on the table in front of her. "Found this in the trash," I said quietly. Her face went pale. She stared at the bracelet like it was a snake ready to strike. Her breathing got shallow, and for a second, I thought she might actually faint. "I can explain," she said again, almost pleading now. I shook my head. "Don't." The silence that followed felt heavier than anything I'd ever known, heavier than waiting for gunfire in some dusty hellhole overseas. I pushed off the counter and stepped away, grabbing my jacket off the chair. "I'm going for a drive," I said. "Don't wait up." I didn't even look back at her. Just grabbed my keys, walked out the door, and let it slam shut behind me. The neighborhood was already awake. Joggers, school buses, people starting their normal lives. And there I was, stuck in a moment I couldn't walk away from. I climbed into my truck, tossed my wallet onto the dashboard, and sat there gripping the wheel, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror. I didn't see Brian Miller, husband, anymore. I saw the soldier I thought I'd left behind. The one who knew how to survive betrayal when it came right up and punched you in the gut. And right then I knew. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I didn't really have a plan when I pulled out of the driveway. All I knew was, if I stayed in that house one more second, I was gonna explode. I drove around for a while, no real destination. Just street after street of perfect little lawns and cookie-cutter houses. Places where, from the outside, people's lives looked neat and tidy. Yeah, right. Eventually, I ended up parked outside Alex's bar. The place was closed, but his old pickup was still in the lot. I figured he was inside cleaning up or counting cash. I called him. He picked up after 2 rings, sounding tired. "You all right, man?" he asked. "Not really," I said. "You got security cameras in that bar?" Alex hesitated. Yeah, we do. You want me to pull last night's footage?" I gripped the phone tighter. "Yeah," I said. "I need to see it." He didn't ask questions after that. Told me he'd meet me at the back door. A few minutes later, I was in the dusty stockroom, surrounded by stacks of beer kegs and cardboard boxes. Alex pulled up the footage on a little monitor, cycling through the camera feeds until he found what I was looking for. There she was. Madison. In that black dress I'd complimented her on before she left. Laughing. Smiling. And Scott Peterson, right there next to her, hand way too familiar on the small of her back. I watched him lean in, whisper something in her ear that made her throw her head back and laugh. And God, the way she looked at him. It wasn't a work event kind of look. It was the kind of look you gave someone when you forgot your husband even existed. I made myself watch it again. And again. Until the images burned into my brain. After the 3rd time, I pulled the thumb drive out of the monitor and shoved it into my jacket pocket. "Thanks, Alex," I muttered, my voice hoarse. He gave me this sympathetic look, but didn't say anything. What could he say? I walked out of there feeling like my whole chest was made of broken glass. When I got home, the house was dark except for a soft light spilling from the kitchen. Her stuff was still there, her purse, her jacket draped over a chair, but Madison was nowhere to be seen. On the counter, her phone was lying there. Screen cracked along the edge, like it had been dropped in a hurry. That's when I knew she hadn't just forgotten it. She'd left it behind on purpose. I picked it up, thumb hovering over the screen. Every instinct told me to open it. Go through her texts. Find proof. But another part of me, the part that remembered the man I used to be, told me not to. Not like this. I powered it off and set it down. I wasn't gonna stoop to sneaking through her phone. I didn't need it. I had everything I needed already. I didn't have to wait long. I heard the front door open again, slow, careful, like she knew something was wrong. Her heels clicked softly against the wood floor as she stepped inside. When Madison saw me standing there, leaning against the kitchen counter, arms crossed, she froze. And then her eyes flicked to the phone sitting on the counter. Her face changed. Just for a second. Panic, guilt, fear, all of it flashed across her features before she masked it behind that practiced smile. "Hey," she said, forcing a casual tone. "I forgot my phone." I didn't say anything at first. I just stared at her, letting the silence stretch so tight it might snap. Finally, I pushed off the counter. Where were you last night? I asked, keeping my voice low. She swallowed hard. I told you. The gala. I shook my head slowly, almost pitying her. I saw the footage, Madison. Her lips parted, like she wanted to argue, but nothing came out. I know you were with Scott, I said. I saw you laughing with him. Saw his hand on you. Saw you leave together. Madison's eyes started to fill with tears, but I didn't buy it. Not this time. Brian, please, she said, stepping closer, her voice cracking. It's not what you think. I let out a bitter laugh. Really? 'Cause from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like what I think. She shook her head desperately. I swear, nothing happened. We were just talking about a project for the gala. It ran late and at midnight. I cut in. At a bar? After leaving together. She opened her mouth, then closed it. She couldn't even keep the lies straight anymore. That's when I pulled out my phone. Opened a new text. Typed out a message to Scott Peterson, whose number I had thanks to an old charity event we'd all been at together. Where were you last night at 11:45 p.m.? Sent. Madison's eyes widened as she realized what I was doing. I stared at the screen, waiting. Heart hammering so hard I could barely hear anything else. Seconds later, the reply came in. You know she hasn't been yours for a week. I read it once. Then twice. It felt like the words reached right through my chest and ripped out whatever was left of my trust. I looked up at Madison. Care to explain that? I said, holding the phone out toward her. Her face crumpled, like the mask she'd been wearing finally cracked. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she covered her mouth with her hands. But I didn't feel sorry for her. Not anymore. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was done. Completely done. I don't even remember deciding to move. 1 minute I was standing there holding the phone, the next I was upstairs tossing clothes into a duffel bag. Madison followed me, crying, begging, tripping over her own words. She kept saying it didn't mean anything. That she made a mistake. That it was just talking at first and then it got out of hand. I didn't say a word. Not one. I just zipped up the bag, slung it over my shoulder, and walked right past her. When I reached the front door, she grabbed my arm, hard enough that her fingernails bit into my skin. Brian, please, she sobbed. We can fix this. I looked down at her hand clinging to me. And for half a second, the old instinct kicked in, the part of me that wanted to protect her no matter what. But then I remembered that text. She hasn't been yours for a week. And just like that, whatever was left between us snapped like a dry branch. I pulled free. I'm not your backup plan, Madison, I said quietly. You made your choice. I left her standing there in the doorway, mascara running down her cheeks, clutching her own arms like she could hold herself together if she just squeezed hard enough. I drove. I didn't even know where at first. Just needed to get away from that house, that smell of her perfume, that life we had built like it was made of glass. Eventually, I ended up parked outside a 24-hour diner, the kind of place where the coffee's terrible and the waitresses don't care if you sit there for hours. I slid into a booth, ordered black coffee, and pulled out my phone. If Scott thought he could humiliate me and walk away clean, he had another thing coming. I still had the footage from Alex's bar. I still had every text, every call log, every tiny piece of proof. And now? I was done playing nice. I fired off an email to a buddy of mine who ran a local news blog, the kind that loved scandals even more than they loved accuracy. Attached the video files. Attached the text messages. I didn't even write a message. Just dropped the files in and hit send. I sat there for a while after that, sipping bad coffee and staring out at the dark street. It felt like something inside me was burning away, like I was peeling off an old skin I didn't need anymore. Somewhere deep down, I knew this wasn't just about Madison. This was about every time I'd let people lie to me. Every time I'd believed someone because it was easier than facing the truth. The next morning, the internet exploded. I woke up to my phone buzzing non-stop, texts, emails, missed calls. The blog had run the story overnight. Front page, local banker caught in scandal, secret affair exposed. Photos from Alex's security cameras. Screenshots of text messages. The whole dirty story laid out for everyone to see. Scott Peterson's career was basically over before sunrise. Madison's too, in a way. Everyone in town was talking. Her charity friends. The neighbors. Even people from her own office. I could have felt smug about it. I could have reveled in the wreckage I'd left behind. But honestly, all I felt was tired. Exposing them didn't fix anything inside me. Didn't stitch up the parts they ripped open. I got back home that morning. The house felt different. Empty in a way I hadn't felt before. Madison wasn't there. No note. No text. Nothing. Just that heavy, hollow silence filling every room. I dropped my keys onto the counter and just stood there for a while, staring around like maybe something would feel familiar again. But it didn't. Everything, the pictures on the wall, the blanket she always curled up with on the couch, the mug she left half-finished on the kitchen table, it all felt like echoes of a life that wasn't mine anymore. I moved through the house without really thinking, ending up in the living room. The TV sat dark. The windows were still half-closed, letting in strips of cold, pale light. It felt like the world had moved on without me. I sank onto the couch and just sat there, elbows on my knees, head hanging low. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, lit up with 100 messages. Friends, family, even some people I barely knew, all reaching out after the story about Madison and Scott broke. I didn't answer any of them. What was there to say? Sometime later, I don't even know how long, I heard a car pull up outside. Door shut. Footsteps on the porch. I didn't move. Just sat there, staring at the floor. The front door creaked open, and there she was. Madison stood there in the doorway like a ghost of herself, hair tied back in a messy knot, sunglasses hiding her eyes even though she was indoors, clutching her purse like it was the only thing keeping her together. She didn't say anything at first. Neither did I. The air between us felt so thick I could hardly breathe. Slowly, she walked in, each step hesitant, like she was afraid she might break something just by moving. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded document. Laid it down carefully on the coffee table in front of me. Divorce papers. Already signed. No fights. No arguments. Just, final. Beside it, she set a small silver photo frame. It was that picture, one I'd almost forgotten about, from way back at one of those charity galas, when we still smiled without thinking, when we still believed we were untouchable. I thought you might want it, she said, her voice hoarse, barely more than a whisper. I picked up the photo, running my thumb across the glass, tracing the outlines of who we used to be. Funny thing is, for a second, I almost didn't recognize us. I looked up at her, really looked, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't see my wife standing there. I saw a stranger. A stranger carrying the wreckage of something we both let die. She lingered a second longer like she wanted to say something else. Maybe apologize. Maybe explain. But whatever it was, she swallowed it down and turned toward the door. She didn't slam it. She didn't even look back. Just closed it softly behind her. And that was it. I sat there alone for a long time after she left, the divorce papers and that stupid photograph lying there on the table between us, like the last remains of a battle we both lost. Eventually, I got up. I filed the papers away, tucked the photo into a drawer, and shut it. Not because I wanted to forget, but because it was time. I stepped outside onto the porch. The air was cool, sharp, full of that early morning bite that wakes you up whether you want it to or not. The street was empty. The whole world felt wide open again. And for the first time in a long, long time, I didn't feel trapped anymore. No more lies. No more pretending. No more being someone's backup plan. It wasn't the ending I would have chosen. But maybe, just maybe, it was the one I needed all along. I took a deep breath, looked up at the clear blue sky, and felt something shift inside me. I was free. And whatever came next, whatever messy, complicated, beautiful thing was waiting down the road, I was finally ready for it.